It's Monday, July 24th, 2023. Um, it's full swing of the summer. I have no money. I have no friends. My family is not even with me. Um, there's nowhere to go. There's no one to see. There's nothing to do. So all I have left is this holographic universe. So I'm looking to see what's left, trying to piece this all together of what did they do with my entire life, um, and why am I being, punished like time, like just pummeled. It is just ridiculous. It really brings to mind like the way my spirit and my person feels is very much like the scene from The General's Daughter from 1999, where she's laying in the bed and the father's hovering over her, like, just shh, like this didn't happen. Um, that's just how I feel visually, physically, emotionally in this area. Um, and when I was asked on the Blue Princess phone to go to Florida, um, I went to meet the college advisor, or at least that's what it was. I didn't know what college was, they weren't talking about it. And I went with Dan and Dan's family. Um, but it's one of those trips that it almost reminds me of, because I just saw the Barbie movie in the year's 2023. Like when the Mattel executives go to get Barbie, and Barbie sits right next to the Mattel executives, and it's like her toy company. She's just inside the big black SUV next to the board of directors, like the chair. Oh my God, the one with the drumsticks. And it's Barbie's like, you're my company. I'm Barbie and you're my company. And that's very much that whoever was in that big black SUV and however we flew, where I don't even have memories of it because I don't think I was fully awake for the entire trip. In like, do we need airline tickets? Because normally when I fly, it's airline tickets, but we were in some other whatever we were in with like whoever they were. Um, and then it remembers, so Sleeping Beauty comes to mind, where the Disney princess gets put to sleep, and Prince Charming wakes her up. It feels a little more sadistic, but along those lines. And then I hear things like Ron DeSantis, who's like, Florida is where woke goes to die. And I'm like, right, in this version of Barbie and Disney Princess and what's happened, um, that might be one of the most honest politicians I've ever heard. Because I don't know that my reputation, like, they didn't send the correct Ken for my Barbie status in New York for certain. Um, if I was Sleeping Beauty, there was no formalization like allowed for her to go live happily ever after with the prince at the end of the movie. Things like that have been kept from my person. I now look like this. I don't even look like I'm being kept like a Barbie. So there's big things that are a problem. I'm looking for answers at this late stage of the game, for which I am just looking for answers, and they sent something called, they used to have this thing called Boy Scouts. um, American Legion is now involved in it, I found out, but they sent a magazine called Scout Life. It's no longer Boys Life, but I have sons, so I'm looking, which I'm not explaining how they arrived. It's the Immaculate Conception as far as God and God is concerned. um, I'm looking at a game that they have here, and I'm like, Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life. It says, a wonderful life tells the tale of a farmer who has given up farming. But as the game begins, he returns to the family farm to find happiness raising chickens. Now, if you're part of the war machine, like, I really see the insidious, like, passive aggressiveness of that last statement. Tending crops and starting a new family. It says, virtual farm life is satisfying, social, and busy, busy, busy. Most of all, it's fun. I have not found working for free, almost in slavery, in the holographic universe, any fun. Like, this is not fun for me. I would prefer to live as Barbie and Ken and being taken care of as such, working as some fat house slave with no future, like anything, really is not the way that I wanted my life to go. And I'm pretty sure my parents would have never had me if this was the outcome. And again, I have a special RH sensitivity in my ABO blood group. So I'm going to look from the game, the Boy Scouts American Legion's this month's issue, and the game that they're putting out there in the universe, having gone this far down this path, and knowing that the United States of America, the U.S. Treasury, looks like this, by Federal Reserve note. And then I have a message from Zion from this week, which also reads like a very passive aggressive, because like, in God we trust, right? Yeah. I don't live in Alabama. Allah or Bama. So even though this looks like some kind of bigamist colony at the moment, just enjoying whatever they do, I'm really concerned for my safety. Watching Barbie this weekend, I felt a little better at the end. It was almost like when the Mattel rep came to meet Barbie, like, I almost feel like, is that like Janet Yellen honestly trying to find the Barbies in the real world that maybe have been hurt within the dollhouse area, and send us a message of like hope that she exists somewhere in the real world. She knows we exist and we might not again. It's just because they had that very touching moment at the end. So, and in the Barbie movie, in like my real world terms, there's Rebecca Luke, the Remax broker owner, the one who's partners with Kelly Jackson, for where I was being whatever, in the series of rooms I entered. I really see her and her daughter in the movie, like with C's Barbie, they like, there was not a really nice interaction. But then, like, because Rebecca and I, we seemed to get along, but it was, again, very much like the Barbie and in the back seat, and then the driver of the Chevy at that particular time, seems really important and key in the lower LIE traffic report from Long Island at the moment. But here's what News Nation put on, as far as the heat wave they've got going on. And then something really frightening. They're using the territory of the United States of America, and they're putting the flag of China over it. I don't know why. We go by a different pattern in this area.
To be out in full force, and experts, they say, pay attention to your body, guys. Stay hydrated. Those are the key ways to know that you won't be a victim of any heat stroke, and that you can stay hydrated and obviously stay well within your body temperature regulation.
Now, I know in China they have a different body regulation on their monetary system. So this is the one with the US, the US. This is the one that they use in this area. If you go to any bank and you try to withdraw the currency for the United States of America from east to west, this entire area, that's the Ken and Barbie look-alike idols for this area still in the year 2023.
As millions of Americans, Alex, just continue to fight this heat wave across the country.
All right, great advice there. Thank you very much there, Ryan. Nearly $1 billion.
And also in the box office this weekend, they put a face, which also looks like the family line of the atom bomb. Looks also like that, just for posturing correctly.
Dollars in land purchases by a mystery company near a California Air Force base is raising national security concerns. That firm, Flannery Associates, has invested more than $800 million in real estate surrounding the Travis Air Force Base. In fact, the company has...
Now, there's a saying here. There's bragging rights, there's birthrights. Bragging rights now all of a sudden in 2023 makes sense. There's a DA. But then there's this, inside this television, they're saying something about U.S. citizens, and I'm like, who's the issuing body on who's allowed to call themselves a U.S. citizen or not? It just seems like a really important federal conversation at one look of the family for the Barbies and the Kens to really make sure that the rest of the participants in corporation at the U.S. level and whatnot is up to the bar and the standard that was set forth when all of this began. Like when I arrived, my parents had been here the entire time, that kind of thing.
Has been aggressively ramping up its acquisitions since the beginning of the year, and now lawmakers want to know who's behind it and why they're snatching up so much property. News Nation's Emily Finn has those details tonight.
Alex, that's right. It's still unclear for what purpose Flannery Associates is investing in the lands near Travis Air Force Base in California. And with so much mystery surrounding these purchases, some of our lawmakers...
Is that a travesty? There's a saying out there just floating around somewhere in the universe just for particle theorists that document, and as far as the God particle, the universe, the Big Bang Theory, like aerospace in this area, and dark atoms, and this sweeping thing I got going on in New York. And there's a game called Hide and Seek, and it's really starting to paint a very different portrait in New York everywhere I go. And I'm really not clear as to who's behind this driving force exactly.
Our lawmakers on Capitol Hill say they are not ruling out the possibility this group could have ties to our foreign enemies. The Air Force's Foreign Investment Risk Review Office is investigating Flannery Associates, a group of landowners who have purchased almost 52,000 acres zoned for agricultural use near the Travis Air Force Base in California. According to the Wall Street Journal, questions about their intentions with the land are raising concerns. Legal representation for Flannery says the group is controlled by U.S. citizens, with 97% of its capital coming from U.S. investors. But
okay, so now so this is a federal conversation. And then there's this, who's deciding at the federal level who the citizens are and who's allowed to participate in this territory. That goes by a very real patterned national flag, which is the one that I still have on the wall. But yet, on this landmass, for some reason, they're putting a flag of a different area, that the shape of the landmass, cartography and geography, doesn't match the pattern flag, which is associated with a completely different piece of the puzzle. If like the globe and the land masses actually have puzzle pieces, the pattern and the puzzle piece don't work or don't fit together. They're associated with something completely different.
even after the last 8 months of investigating these land acquisitions, federal officials say they can't confirm or deny Flannery's assertions to be true, and still have not been able to determine exactly who is backing Flannery. California Congressman John Garamendi says we don't know who Flannery is, and their extensive purchases do not make sense to anybody in the area. He adds there are reasons to be concerned Flannery may have ties to China or other foreign enemies since so little information is available about this so-called mystery company. Flannery Associates sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, one of the many federal agencies probing the land purchases, saying no foreign person of the group holds any significant interest of substantial control over Flannery, either now or at the time of any land purchase. But concerns like this aren't just happening in California. News Nation has been dedicated to investigating Chinese-owned projects in parts of North Dakota and Michigan. Last year, 300 acres of farmland were purchased near the Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota by Chinese-owned Fufeng, a deal raising red flags about potential spying. After pushback from the local community, the city council ultimately voted to end the project, citing national security risks. Grand Forks residents saying they've heard from people in other parts of the U.S. dealing with similar concerns, asking for advice on how to protect themselves from potentially shady agreements.
We've heard from people in Arizona and Florida and Texas, how are you doing this? And my advice is saying you have to be a voice. You have to have the courage to step forward. You have to be you have to form a grassroots group.
And in Green Charter Township, Michigan, an agreement to build an electric vehicle battery plant from Chinese-owned Goshen is currently delayed, following similar pushback from locals. The plant would be located near Camp Grayling, where the U.S. is training the Taiwanese military. News Nation was at a protest against the project earlier this year, where residents said they don't want China in their own backyard.
You don't have to connect too many dots to see the connection to the Chinese government and the Chinese connection with that. I've been looking at, I see spy balloons, okay? We see TikTok under investigation. We see
You see on the top of his hat, same pattern as the one that I'm speaking about, because after this, it's going to flash with the geographical pattern that I'm in, that I was born in, and that I have time spent in this area of the dollhouse with the currency, with all of these items, building that's built the story of this area, for which in God we trust, at the G-O-D.
Xi Jinping meeting with Putin.
And the USDA reports nearly 384,000 acres of agricultural land in the U.S. is already controlled by the Chinese. And the rate at which they're purchasing this land is rising exponentially. Over the past 5 years, Chinese ownership of American farmland has increased 55%. And when we map out exactly where this land is located, almost 3/4.
Right here, this is not correct. This is a mislabeling. And this is a problem. This is a big problem. This is the year 2023, and I have no idea why, because I have a different pattern, and this is the local currency that you withdraw out of a bank for Bank of America, and wherever they deposit Bank of America, it's not this pattern.
Orders are in the South. About 16.
From what I've been shown, this pattern, the underlying pattern, has its own monetary currency and its own people, and is located somewhere far, far away from here.
16% of these Chinese-owned farms are on the West Coast, and that's where the nearly $1 billion of land acquisition from this mystery company, Flannery Associates, is located. Many questions are still remaining about who is behind Flannery and their intentions with this land, Alex.
Okay, Emily Finn, live in studio for us. Thanks so much for that report. For the 6th day now, fire crews continue to battle.
So that is there. I'm going to pause this for a second and go to some of the other headlines. Now, CBS 2 News, New York, has this other thing going on right now called congestion pricing fight, where governor from New Jersey is saying that it's strictly financial, like It's not even about the pollution, although when I arrived in 1978, before I even entered a school, um, there was talks of breathing this toxic fume and these toxic air, and it was known then. It's now seeming to bubble up to the surface. I don't know what took so long and what stifled it.
Trying to stop the congestion pricing in the city. As CBS News' Alicia Reed reports, the borough president says he's prepared to take legal action against it.
The Verrazano Bridge is currently the most expensive bridge in the U.S. And Borough President Vito Fasala says his residents must be protected from paying additional tolls heading into Manhattan.
You'd have to be a first-class idiot to support any plan that intentionally hurts your neighbors and your constituents, both from a financial and environmental perspective.
Fasala believes the air quality will worsen. He says the MTA has overlooked Staten Island when it comes to capital projects and congestion pricing, adding tolls between $9 and $23 for vehicles driving below 60th Street in Manhattan will become even more of a burden for residents. Some drivers agree.
It would affect me a lot because there's money coming out of my pockets.
We have to go back and forth. There's really no way for us to go. As a driver, you can't go anywhere else. You have to go over the bridge.
Staten Island drivers can also go through New Jersey, but that means paying additional tolls there before going into Manhattan. On Friday, Governor Phil Murphy and other officials announced their lawsuit against the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Department of Transportation over congestion pricing. He said on Sunday's Face the Nation,
"This will worsen pollution in New Jersey. Congestion pricing, the MTA in New York City has admitted it. This is a financial fix more than it is an environmental fix."
Alicia Reed, CBS 2 News.
More to come. Well, the MTA's.
Now, in really frightening news, as if this story of seasons by Boy Scouts, which is no longer Boy Scouts, it's now Scout Life. It's no longer boys' life, but Scout life. As if this scenario is not enough about this farmer who has given up farming just as the game begins, raising chickens, as a Barbie who never got her Ken. And as a Barbie, you need a Ken. And I didn't get mine. He wasn't 6 foot over. I already know whatever and whatever. He also wasn't RH negative because I'm RH sensitive. So I'm going to, what was I taught? I was taught Monday through Friday at Lloyd Harbor Elementary. Then on Sunday, they stuck me in the Red Cross, the King's Church, for Episcopalian reasons. Whatever it was at St. John's. So I'm returning, but this time I don't have access to St. John's. I have Zion. So I go to Zion for the In God We Trust. Since I don't live in Alabama, I live in God in New York. And I am at Zion Episcopal looking for their words of wisdom after whatever went on this week universally for myself and what's gone on throughout this entire time spent here. And they gave me a message from the Romans. It says the second lesson. It says, "Brothers and sisters, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die." These are the words that they are giving me on Oppenheimer weekend with Barbie. And I already know they got my Barbie and Ken situation wrong. They also told me that US and Australia have some joint war games biannually. And they put out there, because time is a key factor here, 2005. I'm like, oh, okay. So they acknowledge at the US that Alex was created in whatever that means. It says, "But if the spirit you put to death, the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received a spirit of adoption, when we cry, Abba, Father. The only time I've ever heard Abba when they sing at hide and seek the facts and the cover-ups was Sweden. Again, they got me stuck at the Red Cross, so I don't know what that has to do. In like, there's a cat, there's a quattro, there's four, and then there's via. I know that such things exist. I just don't know who and where. It says, when we cry, Abba, Father, it is that very spirit bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs. Heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. Now, is this like a NATO message? Because like at war games in the Pentagon, it seems really important. But I need a panel of fathers that actually like know that I'm the Barbie in the Barbie and Ken at the USA House of New York Representatives. I mean, again, it's a really important feature, I assure you. Anyhow, it says here, if in fact we suffer with him so that we may also be glorified with him. It says, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For the creation awaits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. Now, is that as a country? Because we're one nation under God. And that seems really like a crucial fact on orientating oneself in the conversation. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, and again, I don't know what that has to do with the Labor Party, but again, at Union, it seems really with Teamsters and all sorts of like mucho gusto. And this morning I found out about El Guapo, and I'm like, wait, that's a Three Amigos reference. And that's not one of the languages that were spoken or taught in New York in my time. We know that the whole creation growing under labor pains, and not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly while we await for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we are saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. That's according to the Romans 8, and I don't know, like, that's not a semicolon. I don't know what they call that. 12-25. So there's that. And then I'm going to go back to reference the news again in the holographic universe of what they're piping in here. And this is the sunlight that again, the particulate in the air is not very breathable. And this is what the sunlight looks like while there's heat waves and global climate change going on all over the place. Now, Face the Nation, E30 this weekend had on this one gentleman and his perspective, because he's like in the trenches of the fight with the migration crisis and the borders. And I'm listening to him and his words about what it's like to deal with the state and the federal government on this issue at the moment. Because for some reason, he was allowed to get to the billing department at like the fathers that are running the place. I mean, he knows how to write bills. He knows how to submit bills. I don't know who's doing the audits, but he got to that level of education. I was not allowed that level of education.
Inhumane.
Everything that is happening along the border is just adding fuel to the fire. The governor, no doubt, is doing everything he can to secure the border, but there is a disconnect between what is happening at the top and the person at the ground that is delivering, that is doing the actual function. I would be happy to host the President of the United States in Eagle Pass and walk through this situation. To me, Congress has to solve this because we've been waiting on a president for decades to solve this, and it's not going to be solved. That's why I introduced the HIRE Act. What the HIRE Act does is it focuses on legal immigration. I'm a proponent of legal immigration. Right now, 9 out of 10 people that come over illegally do not qualify for asylum. So let's stop sending them down this route. I'm excited.
9 out of 10 of the people they're sending here do not qualify for asylum. Hello, Barbie and Oppenheimer. Now here's E146 on CBS this morning, where DeSantis actually uses my words, which is really frightening, about blacksmith and something else going on.
Over Florida's new education standards after Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill called the Stop Woke Act last year. The changes include...
Now, I don't know if that has to do originally with Sleeping Beauty on the trip to Florida that I can't even really remember a comment on at the moment. And then what happened when I arrived back in New York going into my season of having children, knowing that I look like one of the federal kids and one of the United States of America kids. And I really wanted to be like a Barbie with a Ken, but that's not what I received when I got back to New York and going into having children, to what led to right now.
That some enslaved people actually...
And again, I'm not just any Barbie. Like they're doing a Tony Bennett thing just so Brady Bunch knows about the birthday in New York and recognizing that specific day. They're putting Tony Bennett's face on it. I don't know if that's for like a Netanyahu and a Cuomo and like a Mazad thing, but like it's all odd. It's what it feels like, because I don't know really who's pulling what strings. It's my birthday, but they're making note of it with Tony Bennett.
Benefited from slavery because it taught them skills. Nancy Cordes is following all of this at the White House. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, John. Yes, this debate may have started in Florida, but it has now landed squarely in the middle of the presidential race.
I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it.
Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis tried to distance himself from the curriculum controversy, but it didn't work.
I didn't do it and I'm not involved in it are not the words of leadership.
Florida's new history teaching guidelines, approved last week, stem from a 2022 law Governor DeSantis called the Stop Woke Act.
Governor DeSantis started this fire with the bill that he signed.
The new standards say Florida students should be taught about the harsh conditions slaves endured, but also about how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
They're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
Does that have to do with my overlay parlay and the blacksmith that I had to endure after this crazy donkey? I'm just curious, because none of those were my choices here.
Comment drew a swift rebuke from fellow Republican presidential candidate Will Hurd, who tweeted, "Slavery wasn't a jobs program that taught beneficial skills. It was literally dehumanizing." NAACP President Derek Johnson.
We all must stand together as a nation to ensure we don't find ourselves going backwards, that we stand united as a country and not try to remake history.
Two of the authors of the guidelines say they proudly stand behind them.
Now, where I have a problem is I was denied a bachelor's level education, bachelor's degree through college, by something in this darker category who stood literally in the way and would not pass me through that class, which would have led to the bachelor's degree. So I've been held outside of educational standards. I have not been able to get my own work. I've not been able, things that they take so highly and like pride themselves on, I've been withheld from being able to obtain even that level, not for lack of trying. And then it used to just be that they called themselves Africans, but nowadays there's an AAPI version, there's a Latin American and Central American version, and still an African version. So they're using these almost to like really like cluster their power, and they've been just killing it at all sorts of different things, which has further hurt my abilities, especially with whatever's going on in this area.
And that they were, quote, developed using a methodical process within our work group.
They want to replace history with lies.
The nation's first Black and Asian American vice president traveled to Florida Friday to condemn.
Now, here is what's going. They're in the U.S. blue regalia or blue suits, but they're not blue bloods. That's confusing. They're also, like, again, without any kind of, like, whatever. So, and the White House is in, if we're going to particle theory physics, the White House has already taken a war theater visual hit with this Obama-Biden joint effort few years back. And then they put Biden back into the White House, but with a vice president hit now. Again, at battlefields and at enemies coming from everywhere and any possibility or potential thereof. And looking at some of the clues that they're throwing at me, now that I'm actually making like my point heard, it is, and knowing what's inside participating at a New York City mayor that I also did not vote for. Don't know how he got on a ticket.
The new standards in person.
I am deeply concerned. Because let's be clear, I do believe this is not only about the state of Florida. There is a national agenda afoot.
This is likely to come up again when Vice President Harris appears at a Latino conference in Chicago today. Governor DeSantis is defending the new standards, saying they are probably the most robust African-American history standards in the country. Nancy?
So I don't know if that has to do with El Guapo and the Three Amigos movie from 1986 that Steve Martin was in. Again, I'm looking at all of them and their artistic allowances and voicing prior to, like, I mean, they had the opportunity to fix my position and make sure that I actually was treated like a Barbie, that I actually got to a relationship with a Ken, that things went so smoothly. Again, like, if you're just the working poor class and you have these iconic pieces in your society, why would you not lift them up so they could then do their charity and like fundraise for the area in order to keep it in a clean cycle? I don't understand that at all. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But instead, they went with the option of pushing me into this bastardized situation. And now it's a whole nother set of, I don't know what, unbeknownst to me. Now, on News Nation, it goes from Chinese ownership of American land up 55% since 2018. I don't know. I can't verify those, but that's what the Holographic Universe is just throwing out there. To then they're burning RHODES in Greece. Didn't even know it existed. They have an Iron Man 2 reference of it with someone that they allowed to fly.
Today now, fire crews continue to battle a massive wildfire ripping through the Greek island of Rhodes. The blaze forcing thousands of tourists and locals to spend the night in hotel lobbies, gymnasiums, and schools. Greek officials say nearly 19,000 people have been evacuated at this point. It's reportedly the largest evacuation in the country's history. The wildfires in Rhodes are among hundreds that have broken out all across Greece over the past week. Officials say dry conditions along with heat waves are making the situation difficult for firefighters to contain. A Russian missile strike heavily damaged a
Here's a movie called Iron Man 3 that Marvel Studios put out there with one of the doppelgangers, just like they gave me in the Barbie house, the Rebecca Luke looking doppelganger. In this movie, there was another person, the Frank Falco, that wasted my time, and he was a business analyst for something, another 6 foot under person, but he was more technology related, and I had never heard of a business analyst. I didn't know you could do remote work. He worked for some company on Long Island where there was very much like he had a boss that he introduced me to in Melville when I came to visit for lunch one day, which was something that he set up.
There's just one lesson left, President Ellis, so run away. Hide, kiss your children goodbye, because nothing, not your army, not your red, white, and blue attack dog can save you.
I'll see you soon.
Tell Rhodes, find this lunatic right now.
Sir, we tracked the broadcast signal. We have a possible point of origin in Pakistan, and the Patriot is ready to strike
Right now.
Yes, sir.
I think they paint them as patriots, but that gets really confusing from like a mom of little kids and who was never taught herself, having to like go to church and knowing that they don't even allow me to participate in the economy in this area, and they don't want to treat me like a Barbie. And there would be, on my birthday, I took a helicopter. We flew vertical on my birthday, my 31st birthday. There were 2 pilots there. They had like the special thing. He got me safely from point A to point B in whatever you need a vertical pilot for. But he would be really key in witness statements for knowing what was with me going into the Grand Canyon and coming back out. And had no physical relationship with me at that point.
Hang on a second. Hello. You remember a chick straddling you and you look up and suddenly she's glowing from the inside out, kind of a bright orange?
Yeah, I've had that. Who is this?
It's me, pal. Now, last time I went missing, if I remember correctly, you came looking for me. What are you doing?
A little knock and talk, making friends in Pakistan. What are you doing?
Your redesign, your big rebrand, that was AIM, right?
Yeah.
Rebrand. That's interesting. At AIM, right. Isn't that what the U.S. Air Force, again, same U.S. Air Force that has dollhouse representatives that look like this, myself being one, somewhere in under the umbrella of the U.S. It's really important. What are they rebranding for? I mean, they're putting it in the studio. They're putting it out there in the universe. There's particle theorists. There's like a whole science dedicated to this. I don't know who they are or where they're from, but I am in New York and I'm just in the holographic universe at this point and not really a soul to contact out there. It seems significant. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And on that very special birthday where that vertical pilot witnessed me being followed by a rep that was not over 6 foot. It was Alexander's 3rd birthday. But it was so important for me, for that vertical flight ride, to miss his 3rd birthday, the one and only his 3rd, which again is a significant thing on the 8-3 being a 78. And especially since the child arrived in the special blood type, special look, special dollhouse, but yet I'm having a problem with Barbie and Ken.